Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Notes to Self. My name is Melanie.
And I'm Corey.
And if you don't know who we are, we were both born and raised in the AUB, or the Apostolic United Brethren, which is a polygamous cult here in Utah. I was raised with 4 moms and 34 brothers and sisters.
And my dad had 9 wives and 39 siblings, 39 of us all living in the same compound up in Montana. So,
Yep. Corey was raised, we were both raised in the AUB, but Corey was raised on a compound in Montana, and I was raised in Salt Lake, in the suburbs of Salt Lake. So we have kind of delayed or been waiting to do this episode because this one was a hard episode, obviously, for everyone. But one of the biggest things is we have been procrastinating even putting out this video because we had a lot of emotion when we watched this episode. I think we were like both physically sobbing when we were watching it because our heart just went out to this family. And so we have just kind of decided that we really made a couple of different notes, but really wanted to just talk about how what happened during this episode has impacted pretty much every single polygamous family that we know. I don't know one polygamous family that hasn't been hit with this kind of a reality that someone decides to choose out of life. And what does that look like for the survivors and the people who are left behind? And I myself have had a couple of, my first attempt at choosing out of life. I was 20. And it was I did an entire video on that. If you decide you want to go back and watch that, it's in our podcast section on our channel. And then I did have a couple of recent I guess it was 2017 was life got really dark and really, really heavy. And that's when Corey and I were divorced, and we were going through our separation and trying to figure out our way back to each other, what we were going to be doing with life. And I was just in really dark place during that time. And but we know people who have personally been affected. Tomorrow is a big day for Mark's a very, very close family member that we had, one of probably the most devastating deaths of my life, where she chose out, and tomorrow marks the 15-year anniversary of that. So our hearts just are really tender towards this subject. Yeah. I would say, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it hits home. Like she said, there is not one family that I know of, that, including ours, that has not had this happen within their family member. It's I don't know if it's because the way we grew up, the belief systems that we had, that when it gets depressing, when life gets hard, especially when you're being shunned or shamed, and I'm just saying this about myself and about family members we've had, that, hey, you're going to hell anyhow. Why not just choose this when I go out? So,
yep.
So every one of us have had this happen within our lives, had close family members who have done it. And my belief systems on the way I grew up to the way they are now are completely different. I don't believe in hell, that they're going to go to hell. So,
yeah. And we really had to reconcile that when, the anniversary of, an extremely close family member tomorrow will mark 15 years. And when she decided to choose out of life, I really had to come to some reconciliation about that, because of the belief systems that we're taught growing up are very riddled with guilt. They're very riddled with shame. And that was really hard for me. We were pretty active in the LDS church at the time. And we had the bishop come over, and I remember talking to the bishop saying, what's going to happen to her? Where is she going to go? Because I had not reconciled my own spirituality at that point in my life. And I was genuinely concerned for her eternal salvation. And when I was 20 and I decided to choose out, it was August 23rd of it would have been 1994. And I remember the next day I had people come over to help me out. And I remember saying, I remember some of the guilt and the shame that was put on me about that, of how, why you were blessed with a body. There were souls that were not blessed with a body, and you're choosing out of yours. What are you thinking? And so that's where we really wanted to point out. The whole point of us even talking about the Browns is to show what the polygamy side of things are, what the religious teachings are, and how we grew up. And so I think that's really what we're going to stick to more today when talking about this, is what we were taught and how the shame and the guilt and how heavy a burden that is. And for years after my first attempt on choosing out of life, I was shamed for years over that, because I was given a blessing and an opportunity, and I didn't fully appreciate that. I didn't fully, how dare I even think about making a move like that in my life. So one of the things, we didn't write a whole lot down because this will be a shorter video for us. But one of the things that I wrote down is the loss of knowing what to do for a loved one. Now, we are not mental health professionals in any way, shape, or form. We are only going off of our own experiences, based on my own experience going through this, our own experience of having very, very close family members choose out. And it's the loss of knowing what to do for them before they choose out, and what to do for them after, or what to do after they're gone. How do we pick up the pieces and do the birthdays and do the holidays and do just all of the different things that come with the loss of such a, impactful. Well, and I feel like too, for me, just losing my brother a year and a half ago, that's still fresh. And so the grief that comes in waves is overwhelming sometimes. And
we don't want to judge anybody about how they grieve
or what they choose to do.
Yeah. When my father passed, it took 3 years for I was numb. And so it took 3 years to have that grief hit me.
Yeah.
And it was childhood training. I was taught from a young age that, hey, you're the man, you're strong. You're supposed to be stoic for the ladies in your life. And so you need to push that down and not grieve. So I feel sad for every one of those family members. So, because we know what they're going through. So,
well, and we waited so many days because we're like, oh, we need to pull ourselves together.
And I'm not sorry.
And so we waited for a while to film this one. Christine did a quote on the show about, to the stars, Bowen. And so we decided to go watch the show. And
again,
Dragonheart. Yeah, we'd already watched that. My mom's been staying here with us, and it was my little brother who passed had Down syndrome, and he would get stuck on movies. And this was one of the movies that he would get stuck on. He loved the show because he loved dragons and stuff. So yeah, it's been an emotional time at our house this week, just trying to process through this, and then having the anniversary come up tomorrow. It's been an emotional week at our house for that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was when Maddie said your brain chemistry alters. And that is so true for anyone who has lost a loved one. You're one person 1 second, and then you hear this news and you're a completely different person in the next second. There's just something about life and death that creates you. When a new life comes in, you become a completely different person. Especially if you're a parent and this new life is one you created, you're a completely different person. I remember the first child that Corey and I had together. He was already such a great dad to my 3 other kids, but I knew that he would forever be changed when this new life came into the world. And you were, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that I really can attest to with Maddie when she says that, when you find out. And I've watched people become new parents, and I've watched people lose a loved one. I've seen both sides of that spectrum, and just they physically transform in an instant. One breath, they're one person, the next breath, they're someone else. And then also the uncontrolled grief, the tears, the way they come in waves. And that is so we cannot speak to that enough. I mean, here we are 15 years later, and
Mm-hmm.
the anniversary comes up, and we always think about it because it happened on Mother's Day. So Mother's Day weekend is the weekend that we always think about our very close family member that passed, and that chose out of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mother's Day is always a bittersweet weekend for us
Mm-hmm.
as well. Go ahead if I'm going too fast for you.
I would just I believe in karma, and so we just want to send, I don't know, our love and condolences to that whole family, because I don't even want to know what it feels like to lose a child. I'm going to pass long before any of my children.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm putting out there into the universe. So I will pass long before any of my children. So, and I don't think that this discussion should be taboo. We should be able to discuss it if somebody's hurting, or that we can actually discuss it without shame around it and comfort those people. So, and be with them. So,
and that is one of our biggest appreciations that we had for the Browns this week, is that how openly and boldly they're talking about it, because in the society that we were raised in, it's frequent. It happens a lot, and people don't talk about it.
They won't even discuss it.
They don't want other people to know, because the survivors are riddled in guilt and shame about what their family member chose. And I'm sad that we even get censored online. We can't even say certain words online because we can't talk about it openly and honestly. And so we have to be careful about the words that we choose to use in our videos. And I just really, really appreciated the boldness of the Browns and the way that they so openly talked about things. Another thing that we really wanted to point out is just how, we have made this comment before. Children are the collateral damage in this religion, and you see it. You can see how they are the collateral damage. And our heart just breaks whenever we watch an episode or we experience a close family member, anyone that we know that goes through something like this. It's hard for us because our hearts are so close to those kids, being those children that lived through this. Another thing that we wanted to point out is we've said from the very beginning that when the Browns first decided to do this show, we had made the statement, if anyone could show how well polygamy would work, it would be the Browns, because they're a family that loves each other, and they were so cohesive together. And I really wanted to point out, Mary shouldered, in my opinion, Mary shouldered a lot of the heaviness of this episode. And you could see, just palpable, you could feel it, taste it in her when she found out about
grief.
And the grief, and just, you can see the grief in her, you can see the grief in Christine, you can see the grief in Janelle. And like Janelle said, these women have been through the mud together. They have been through the dark times, through the hard times, through the moving all over the place times. These women genuinely loved their children, despite the differences that the women might have had amongst themselves. They genuinely loved those children, and as if they were their very own children, because they count them as their own children. And that was the part that got me probably the most on this episode, is watching that deep pain that they all felt. As they expressed the love. When Mary says, no, not one of our children, can't even get that sentence out without feeling sadness about it, because it's so true. Not one of our children. And when someone can love a child as if they're biologically their own, that is a special level of love that not very many people understand. So I really commend Mary and Christine and Janelle for having that genuine love. And this is what we were talking about at the very beginning, when we said the Browns could show what this lifestyle, the positives of this lifestyle. And that is one of the positives of this lifestyle, is that you learn to love beyond yourself.
Yeah.
You learn to love other people and put other people's needs. Are they perfect at it? No.
None of us are.
None of us are. But the Browns did. They were one of the best.
Yeah.
And so it breaks our hearts to see where they are now. But I'm also so grateful to watch these women truly, truly love other children. So,
and surround each other.
And when Mary said, I called Janelle and I said, I'm getting food and I'm coming over. That's the type of love that we are talking about. That's the type of selflessness that when you go into this religion, that's what you're striving for. You're striving for that level of selflessness.
Yeah.
But people are still human. Jealousies are still real. Things that happen in your day-to-day life. But when the true moments to show your true character and who you are come up in life, because they always will, these women excelled in this episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the hardest parts of this episode for me was the silence. There was so much silence as people learned to process or felt through the emotion before they could even speak. And that was really, that was one of the hardest parts of the entire episode for me, is watching these people at a loss of words for someone that they loved and adored so much. And just knowing how we felt, we did have in Corey's family, recent experience, exactly the same way that this Garrison chose out. And that was just a few years back. And I remember the silence of everyone going, what? How does this happen?
Shock.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah. And the processing.
And did I do enough? Just like he says in there.
The what ifs.
What ifs.
The what ifs, I think, are the hardest part for so many, especially when you're raised in this religion. The what ifs are, I feel like, almost enormous, because now what's going to happen to them? What if I would have tried harder? What if I would have prayed harder? What if I would have brought them to Jesus more? Just you can get lost in this, because now the way that we were taught, this soul goes to outer darkness. What happens to him? Where does he go? And that's really something that's really hard to reconcile in your own, belief system.
Nothing that we believe now. I do not believe that at all.
No,
so.
we have completely shifted. And I know a lot of them are because of the personal deaths that we've had, that we have experienced, and just the sheer love that we have for that person. I can't imagine that a God would say it was too much, and now you don't have anything. I can't imagine a God saying that to his children. One of the things that I really wanted to, Gabe made a statement in there that really just shows the true character of these children. These children are amazing children. And, we're watching the show for the first time. We're on season 3, and we are already falling in love with these children, with what amazing children they are. And we don't know them to the depth that all of our people who watch our shows know them, because we just have not watched the shows. But what we do know of them, they're amazing. They've been beautiful kids. And one of the comments that he made, which now just shows how these children were raised and the character, is he says that one of the things that Garrison did was made everyone feel comfortable and made everyone feel welcomed. And that's a true mark of a gentleman. And, when he said that, it struck a chord in me, because in this religion, we don't see a whole lot of gentlemen. And so, Mary has made that comment. We hope that Cody can be a gentleman. Janelle's made that comment. And these boys show the true makings of a gentleman.
Yep. They've been raised by good mothers.
So, more time. We forgot to say this at the beginning of the video, because we are trying to figure out how to even talk through this video, but more time. if you haven't started healing, go and learn how to heal. Go and do the things that you need to do your work to heal the traumas that you've experienced, because then time will always, it will feel like you've always, it feels like we never have enough time, but time will become more precious when you've healed and you love your people and you love yourself. Time will become more precious, the time that you do spend. I would say since we got divorced and remarried, our time has been really precious to us.
Very valuable.
The people that we choose to love our children a little deeper, and we choose to love each other a lot deeper. And the time that we spend with them is so much more valuable.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
Oh, anything else you want to say?
Cody had mentioned in there that he wishes he could say some more to Garrison. I took that to me as, hey, what is it that I want to tell my kids every single day? I want to talk to them deeper, pick up the phone and see how they're doing, what they're up to. So, and my advice to him is every time he thinks of, I should say, wish I could say this to Garrison, call each one of his kids and tell them that.
Yeah.
So that's going to heal so much pain and rift in that family. So, and so it was a great eye opener for me that, hey, have I called all my kids this week? So, and communicated with them and see how they're doing, how their lives are going. So,
right.
It gives me wake up call watching this stuff too. So I appreciate that.
Well, and I feel like in this life, we don't always get a lot of second chances. And I feel like where we have had a second chance at our marriage and our relationship together, we really do try to love every minute that we have.
Yeah.
We've tried to love our kids deeper. We've worked on loving just everyone around us deeper. So if you haven't started healing, if you've got trauma out there, we all do. If you have a human body, you have trauma. Go out there and do the work. The work is not easy to do. Healing is not easy all the time, but go out there and do that healing so that your people know that they're loved.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sit in the what ifs all the time. You don't have to wonder, could I have done more? Because then you know that you're doing more daily.
And I just want all of my family, brothers, sisters, mothers, nieces and nephews to know that I love them. And if they ever need anything, please give me a call. Please pick up the phone. So
yeah,
anybody.
So we knew this episode was going to be a tough one to get through. We didn't expect to be sitting there sobbing the way that we were. They handled it. Yep. Kudos to TLC for the way that they handled it, with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity for Garrison. And so we are I was very touched at the way that the whole episode was handled. And we will we'll continue with our rewatch after these episodes are over. I feel like we kind of need to respect what's happened here in this situation. If you haven't watched the show Dragonheart, it was a great show. I can see why Garrison loved that to be his favorite movie. It's old school, but it was great. There's a lot of good character moral lessons in that movie. The stars will fall from the sky. What a perfect name for this episode. But thank you all. If we're gonna put the suicide hotline on after the end of this, at the end of our video. So please, if you know anyone who's struggling, who wants to choose out,
don't. You guys are awesome.
Yeah,
we love you.
Please call the hotline, get the help that you deserve, and start healing so that your people are loved, so that you're loved.
There's tons of people in your life that love you.
Yep. Anything else? All right. We love you guys, and we will be back for the next episode. Thanks so much.
See ya.